Donald Trump and Richard Nixon both won the New Hampshire primary 3 times, the only Republicans ever to do that. Trump is by far the only Republican to win New Hampshire 3 times consecutively. Nixon won 1960, 68, 72. Joe Biden and Lyndon Johnson, they're the only presidents to win the New Hampshire primary as write-in candidates. Biden won big last night. His margin of victory, more than 35 points. Johnson won narrowly. His margin of victory, 8 points over Senator Eugene McCarthy. That small victory and McCarthy's anti-Johnson issue, the war in Vietnam, ended Johnson's quest for re-election. Biden feels no such pressure. He and Trump, for possibly one day and one day only, have something in common. They both believe New Hampshire has ended the battle for the nomination, and thus the general election has begun. They have history behind them, and these are nothing if not historic times. However, Nikki Haley has some history on her side, too. She has already won more delegates than any woman to seek the Republican nomination. And she wants this race to continue, vowing to challenge Trump for the next 4 weeks in a state he has remade in his, not Haley's, political image, South Carolina. And that is where we begin. CBS News Executive Director of Elections and Surveys, Anthony Salvanto, joins us now. Anthony, tell us about South Carolina and what awaits Trump and Haley.
Hey there, Major. So let's continue this idea of learning from the past to talk about the future. I'm going to show you the map of the 2016, 8 years ago, 2016 Republican primary there, where Donald Trump really took off, won big, but it was a fractured field. And this is important because you might imagine that the part of the party which supported Donald Trump at the time also supported Ted Cruz at the time, and frankly, they did well in about the same areas geographically, might be one part that he would do well with today. But then there was the Marco Rubio vote, a little bit more for Jeb Bush, a little bit for John Kasich. Maybe we'll watch if Nikki Haley maps onto their votes as well. But overall, you see a pretty dominant win for Trump. And this I want to show you, which is the attitudinal part. Donald Trump back in 2016 won voters who were looking for someone who could bring change. He dominated among voters who said they thought he could tell it like it is. Well, he's very much consolidated that part of the party now, and we learned that because these things were reflected again last night in New Hampshire. For Haley, I think the question is, can she cut in to some of that change, some of that upend the system, fights for me, attitudinal questions that we're going to see going forward into South Carolina?
Anthony Salvanto, thank you very much. CBS News Chief Election and Campaign Correspondent Robert Costa joins us now here at the table. Robert, picking up on that point from Anthony about Haley needs to add to what she has. And one of those things that she needs to add to is the sense that she's not part of the establishment. One of the things she said last night was the establishment's coalescing around Trump. I'm anti-establishment. She's trying to make a bid in that direction, among many other places. Still, though, a very tall order.
I've been making calls in the last few hours after we got back from New Hampshire, and it's clear to me that donors are wary. They're not sure she really has a viable path. A month is a lifetime in politics. No doubt. And she's getting pressure implicitly from many aspects of the party that this race is over. The fact that so many senators who don't like Trump, so many House members who don't like Trump are not rushing now to the political barricades to say, we're with Nikki Haley. Their lack of action speaks volumes.
And is there a way for Nikki Haley to say, whether donors are with me or not, I can light a fire among small dollar donors? Or is that a place that Trump not only owns but occupies?
As I talk to Haley's allies and her advisors and her supporters, it's evident to me that she's not really trying to build momentum only on finances and on politics, but she's trying to make a new argument that Trump's vulnerable. And she hopes that eventually the burden of that argument is on Trump's shoulders and collapses his candidacy. It seems like if she stays in, which is still a big if,
of course,
she's making a long-term play that ultimately he's weighed down by everything.
Rob, let's talk about this question of vulnerability and something that Ron DeSantis, recently out of this campaign and a recent endorsee of the former president, said on Steve Deace's podcast. Let's listen.
When I have people come up to me who voted for Reagan and said 76 and have been conservative their whole life say that they don't want to vote for Trump again. That's a problem. So he's got to figure out a way to solve that. I think there's an enthusiasm problem overall. And then I also just think there's some voters that have checked out at this point that you got to find a way to get them back.
Reagan, Republicans out, enthusiasm problem, check out problem. What do you make of what Governor DeSantis just said?
What Governor DeSantis articulated is something you hear from other traditional Republicans, traditional conservatives.
But he's not a traditional Republican.
He's not. But he comes out of the more traditional mold in terms of his libertarian leanings on a lot of things that molded with Trumpism, and he embraced Trump because Trump was the person of the moment in Republican politics. But DeSantis really sees himself as more of a conservative than a populist first. And DeSantis, his time in the House, he was more of a Paul Ryan Republican in terms of how he saw economic policy.
How do you think Trump world will hear those remarks?
They're not going to like it. But he's making a point that just like Reagan, to keep talking about Ronald Reagan, in 80, Reagan went with George H.W. Bush because he needed not just the movement conservatives to make a real coalition for the Republicans. And so what DeSantis is saying, the Florida governor is saying, Trump just can't have grievance populism be the whole party. He needs to bring in conservatives who are more libertarian leaning like DeSantis in Florida, bring in traditional Republicans like Nikki Haley in her South Carolina coalition. And he's saying he needs to be more expansive in his outreach. He just can't assume everyone's going to turn out for him.
We can't know, you can't know, I can't know if Nikki Haley can make the full 4 weeks of South Carolina. She says she will. In your mind as a reporter, what are the kind of benchmarks you're looking at for the next couple of weeks? Is it crowd size? Is it activity? What kind of things are you going to be sifting through?
Well, the real data point's going to be numbers on money. So she's having fundraisers scheduled in California, New York, Florida, South Carolina, among other states. If she comes out of those fundraisers with single digit to tens of millions of dollars committed to her or her super PAC, that's a sign that she's in it for the long haul because you'll have money. Right. If you're building a national campaign, you need money to build a national campaign. It's not clear yet she has money to build a national campaign. She has money to go on the air in South Carolina, $4 or $5 million here or there. She has money to keep a small campaign staff. But can she build a national campaign to compete with Trump, who has his influence over almost every state party in the country?
You have to move from small to scale very rapidly if you're an insurgent presidential campaign. That's true whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. Robert Costa, thank you so very much.
Thanks, Major.